Well, Donald Trump just called empty U.S. ports a good thing.
To what we are seeing in the United States. This is the port of Los Angeles. Again, this is in real time. You can go look on Vessel Tracker right now. Everything that's a cargo ship is docked and nothing is coming in and out.
A 40% cargo drop in a single week. That's what hit the Port of Long Beach, one of the busiest in the United States. Los Angeles followed closely with a 25% plunge in throughput this month, while Seattle saw something even more jarring: 0 container ships docked. This isn't a snapshot from a war zone or a pandemic, it's the current reality of America's port system in May 2025. The sharp decline wasn't caused by falling demand, but by calculated inaction. Faced with volatile trade policies and punishing tariffs, businesses across the country froze their supply chains, waiting out the chaos. But with a sudden 90-day reprieve now in effect, that paralysis is about to snap violently. A tidal wave of delayed cargo is headed for the U.S., and the question no longer is if the system will be stressed, but how badly it will buckle. In response to surging tariffs, businesses paused imports and ports scaled back. Crane operations slowed. Labor hours were cut. Terminals thinned out schedules. No one could plan ahead, not workers, not carriers, not retailers. Before the threat of congestion, there was silence, but not the kind that follows disaster. This was the calculated quiet of a supply chain in self-imposed paralysis. For 6 weeks, a crippling 145% tariff on Chinese imports left U.S. businesses with a brutal choice: either absorb the costs and risk financial strain or stop shipments altogether. Most chose the latter. Retailers, wholesalers, and logistics firms pressed pause, not because they lacked demand, but because the cost of action became irrational. According to Charles van der Stein, president of Maersk North America, cargo volumes from China to the U.S. dropped by 30–40% during this period. That's not a seasonal fluctuation, it's a collapse. In response, Maersk and others pulled 25% of shipping capacity off those routes, redirecting vessels to more stable markets. Entire supply chains were frozen in time. Some importers got creative. A number of businesses moved goods into Canada parking containers temporarily on the other side of the border while they waited for tariffs to fall. Others narrowed their product lines, choosing to ship only high-margin goods, sacrificing volume for survival. These aren't long-term strategies. They're wartime tactics in a policy battlefield where the rules change without warning. The ports themselves suffered from this defensive freeze. Terminal staffing was cut, crane schedules were scaled back, workers were sent home or reassigned. Crucially, this period of reduced activity didn't come with a timeline. No one knew when or if trade conditions would normalize, only that doing nothing was safer than importing at a loss. Now, with conditions abruptly shifting, that strategic pause has become a liability. Ports that slowed down to survive are being asked to accelerate back to full capacity instantly. The machines are cold, the labor force is fragmented, and the wave is already forming on the horizon. On May 14th, the U.S. and China announced a dramatic de-escalation. Tariffs on Chinese goods would drop to 30% effective immediately for a limited 90-day window. Though still a high rate by historical standards for many businesses, this was a green light, or rather a yellow light, flashing furiously before turning red again. The result was instantaneous. Retailers across the country began front-loading inventory, rushing to place orders and fill containers before the window closed. This wasn't typical demand. It was deferred panic triggered by the sudden appearance of opportunity. Items that had been postponed during the tariff spike, back-to-school supplies, holiday merchandise, electronics, were suddenly pushed into production, ordered en masse, and loaded onto ships. But maritime trade has a built-in delay. It takes 3 to 4 weeks for cargo to cross from China to the West Coast and 4 to 6 weeks to reach the East. That means the influx won't be felt immediately, but it will arrive starting in late June and peaking through July, right as the ports are still reactivating operations after weeks of slowdown. The true risk lies in the mismatch between urgency and readiness. While businesses are moving fast, the shipping and port infrastructure they rely on can't pivot at the same speed. Carriers are scrambling to reintroduce capacity, but vessel rotation, staffing, port equipment, and customs clearance systems take time to scale. Unlike e-commerce, the physical supply chain doesn't respond in real time, and it certainly doesn't rebound evenly. And looming behind all this is the possibility of another reversal. What happens if the tariff window closes without a new agreement? If duties return to 145%, mid-shipment goods arriving in August could instantly become financial liabilities. That's the gamble many companies are now taking, betting not just on global markets, but on political timing. America's logistics system isn't built for chaos, it's built for consistency. Ports, shipping lines, warehouses, and last-mile carriers all depend on predictable volumes, stable schedules, and coordinated handoffs. When everything functions in rhythm, goods move seamlessly across oceans, borders, and states. But that rhythm has been broken twice. First came the freeze, a 6-week pause in imports as businesses retreated in the face of crushing tariffs. Then came the flood, a sudden race to import as much as possible under a fragile 90-day window of lower duties. These whiplash conditions have turned the supply chain into a high-stakes reaction game, one it's not designed to play. Shipping giants like Maersk, which pulled 25% of vessel capacity off US-China routes during the slowdown, are now scrambling to redeploy that fleet. But these aren't just plug-and-play assets. Bringing back capacity means rescheduling global vessel rotations, reassigning crews, and coordinating berthing slots, all while ensuring they don't create bottlenecks at other ports. Meanwhile, port operators are trying to prepare for a volume spike without knowing how big it will be or how long it will last. Front-loading behavior. When businesses rush to import ahead of anticipated policy changes, creates sharp peaks in volume that the system cannot easily smooth out. Terminal space becomes scarce, rail yards back up, trucking capacity tightens. The effects cascade through every layer of the supply chain. Even the attempts at agility come at a cost. To respond quickly, some carriers are swapping in larger ships which require deeper berths, more cranes, and longer unloading times, putting more pressure on already stretched terminals. Others are compressing sailing schedules, pushing ships to move faster and turn around sooner, risking delays elsewhere. This isn't sustainable. The system was designed to absorb pressure over time, not all at once. And if the surge collides with renewed policy uncertainty, delayed customs clearances, or labor shortages, it may not just slow the system down, it could paralyze it. Beneath the tariffs, the freight rates, and the port congestion lies a deeper problem: uncertainty. It's not the cost of trade that's breaking the system, it's the inability to predict it. A 30% tariff is high, but businesses can plan around it. What they can't plan for is a policy environment that shifts within weeks without clear direction or warning. One day, it's a 145% tariff that freezes supply chains. The next, it's a 90-day reprieve that triggers a stampede. And after that, no one knows. This volatility turns global trade into speculation. Importers today are placing orders not because it makes financial sense, but because they fear worse terms tomorrow. Retailers are rushing goods across oceans with no idea what tariff rate will apply when those containers land. Some will win that bet, others won't. For large corporations, this unpredictability can be absorbed at a cost. For smaller businesses, it's paralyzing. They can't hedge risk at scale, they can't eat sudden margin loss, and they certainly can't restructure entire supply chains on short notice. The result is a supply chain that's no longer proactive, it's reactive. It no longer plans, it scrambles. Over time, this erodes trust, efficiency, and resilience. Delays become normalized. Panic becomes routine. And every actor in the system, from ports to truckers to store shelves, is left constantly bracing for the next swing. In short, what was once a logistics network engineered for flow has become a system built for survival. Behind every backed-up container and delayed truck is a person waiting for hours that may never be paid. Longshore workers can't rely on stable shifts. Truckers chasing delivery windows find themselves stuck in queues without compensation. Small importers face sleepless nights trying to decide whether to gamble on a tariff that may rise mid-transit. The unpredictability isn't just logistical, it's emotional, financial, and deeply human. Supply chains are not abstract systems. They are made of people, and right now, many of them are running blind. What's unfolding at America's ports is not a one-off disruption. It's a systemic warning. A modern supply chain cannot function when it is asked to sprint, stall, and sprint again with no notice. The tools are there, the ships are ready, the ports have capacity. But none of that matters if policy uncertainty turns every shipment into a strategic gamble. This isn't about tariffs alone. It's about the whiplash they cause when applied without rhythm logic or lead time. The true cost isn't just higher prices, it's the erosion of predictability, the paralysis of planning, and the slow breakdown of confidence across every layer of trade. If the US wants to compete in a global economy, it must treat supply chains as critical infrastructure, not pawns in short-term negotiations. Because what's arriving at our ports in the next few weeks isn't just a surge of cargo, it's the bill for months of uncertainty.